We have Major Glenn Ignacio, a retired Special Operations Air Force commander. We want to thank you, of course, for being here this afternoon.
Always great to be with you.
Big news this weekend. Talk to us a little bit about these remarks, because they've given very little detail as to how they'll be running Venezuela. How do you expect this transition of power to look like?
I think it's interesting because President Trump and the cabinet allowed the continuity of government to continue. So the vice president took over, right? And then at the next aspect, to say that we're going to run the country, I think that's a lot of strong words. I mean, again, apolitically, is I think there's going to be a lot of guidance and investment, because we're going to have to go with the local officials to start building that bound. We're going to have to definitely get the humanitarian aid in there. It's 70% need it, 53% are below the poverty level, but at the same time, rebuilding the country, infrastructure and everything. So it's going to have to be a comprehensive effort.
So one thing that it sounds like you're signaling to me here is that this is probably boots on the ground for some time.
I think it's more on the business side, or at least the State Department and investment that way. But also the critical point is providing security for fair elections. That's the key. Now, how they're going to do that, I don't see it's going to be like the Department of War with actual troops on the ground. I think it's going to be more advisors and others that basically go into that type of expertise.
Okay, and like you just mentioned, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, she was just sworn in as interim president. But President Trump has said if she doesn't comply with the U.S., that she could face a very similar fate to Maduro.
Yeah, I think, we see President Trump do a lot of intimidation where he says something very strong and he walks it back, which I completely understand from a sales perspective, again, being apolitical. But at the same time, it's the influence that the Venezuelan people have to have their freedom back. And I think that's a lot of pressure. And then pushing for fair elections, I think that's one of the things where people will be able to decide as they should. So I think that's where the pressure really is to hang over her head.
Let me ask you about the oil assets, because that seems to be one of the focus of everything here. So will the U.S. or can the U.S. work with the current Venezuelan government in regards to oil?
Oh, I think so, because one of the big things is, again, the oil and the infrastructure in general has been damaged greatly. But the interesting part is we don't need the oil as a country. And really, Venezuela was sort of what we call a center of gravity. When we did that, Cuba depends on them. Cuba possibly could fail. But the other thing is that the market could be flooded with oil, which drops the prices, which means Russia's economically, that could impact Ukraine. And then, believe it or not, 20 to 24% globally, global cocaine distribution went through Venezuela, even though most of it came from Colombia. So that's a big impact globally for hitting Venezuela specifically.
Okay, the mission was called Operation Absolute Resolve. This happened for us, Friday. Obviously, it took expertise and it took a very special team to do this. Can you walk us through, talk to us about this capture and how dangerous that was?
It was run really pristine, but yeah, dangerous. The Delta team, or we call them Combat Applications Group, basically Delta, did the mission. The 160th SOAR, Special Operations Aviation Regiment from the Army, that's their specialty, and also Air Force Special Operations Command. But what they did was they hit a cyber to try to do as much as they can to shut it down. They used kinetic and jamming to take out radar and missile systems so that there's no offensive. And then what they do is they go in, and what we do is fly below the enemy radar so we're not detected, and everything's perfect timing. They did mission rehearsals on the facility over and over again, and the same thing on the flight operations. We do primary, secondary, tertiary in case anything goes wrong, and we go in and prosecute the target. So they know where everything is, and they've practiced it numerous times to go right for him.
So what do you think is the message here that this is sending to other countries, for example, like Colombia, maybe even Mexico, Cuba, down the line here?
I think it definitely keeps things in check, because as we saw through many administrations, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter, is that there's always been a threat. He's the wrong guy, he's illegitimate, and now there's actually operations that happen. And that's one of the things I have to say that Trump has done. So I think it gives them in check. He's also gave warning to Maduro, as he has with others around the country, or excuse me, around the globe. So I think it's a threat that, hey, if he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. So I think it's going to keep them in check, and they're going to definitely, I would say, respect his actions, or at least his authority more.
And with your military background, I just have to ask, because there's a lot of voices and there's a lot of people who are criticizing, but we see a lot of Venezuelans who are celebrating. Was this ultimately good or bad?
I think it was great. One we talked about globally. I think that was brilliant as far as the architecture, how it impacts things. Literally right before I walked in here, a friend who is in Colombia says the Colombians and Venezuelans are absolutely celebrating this. So I think that was key. Again, Noriega was a similar situation. There was a precedent. this happened. He was illegitimate from even the prior administration. I think it was a good thing, and honestly, ask the Venezuelans. Everybody else's opinion, who cares?
All right, Major Glenn and Oxney, we really appreciate you coming by here and